next episode of the How's Your Ground Game podcast. We're here with Birdman down in Vero Beach. My name is Damoon, one of the instructors at the 47 BJJ Co-op in Brooklyn. And we're catching up here. Just another week down in summer training.
Summer training.
Has anybody dropped dead of
Some are not training too.
Some are not training too. Has anyone dropped dead of heat stroke yet?
No. I also have not used the air conditioner yet either.
Like I said before, my students would kill me if I didn't, but my space doesn't have great ventilation. Just the way that the building is and what we have on each side. So once people start working in there, the humidity does build up pretty quickly. I enjoy it, but it can be pretty suffocating.
Yeah. I like it. I enjoyed that kind of training.
We're going to stay away from controversial food topics this week. I got some comments. I got some threats during the week. So,
Was it about black pepper and paprika?
It was about Thai food. I told you, I mentioned Thai food. I can't. So someone mentioned that like Thai food as we have in the States isn't even what they eat in Thailand anyway.
Probably not.
So but I did want to touch on a controversial topic. We'll skip the small talk. We'll jump right into this week's thing. I don't know if it's so controversial, but I think the way we describe the topic and how we do things is very different than how other people do things in jiu-jitsu. So it might be controversial in that aspect. And that's kind of like pack mentality. There's a lot of different ways of phrasing that. You could call it, camaraderie, the team building. A lot of times we just refer to it as like the ecosystem of the room, right?
It's a hive.
It's a hive. And just wanted to begin for people that aren't so familiar with jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu culture, or they're new to it, or just coming from a different angle, why it can be controversial, how different people approach the room and how they run their school and their training programs. So traditionally,
would you mind if I defined pack mentality first?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Pack mentality, you got to think about it as like a dog sled, a pack of dogs. They're all following an alpha, right? A leader. One of the dogs is the leader with a common goal. Okay. Pack mentality is not mob rules, which some people think it is. It's a pack of people out creating anarchy. It's not. Mob rules is completely different than pack mentality. Pack mentality is the dogs have to perform up to the alpha's expectations. Okay? That's how it works. One dog is in charge, the rest follow him. That is the pack mentality we're talking about.
And they're trusting the dog that's in the lead to be steering them in the right direction.
Well, they know if that dog doesn't, that if they don't do what the dog in front does, the alpha's going to give them a beat down. That's literally what it is. If one of the dogs steps out of line, the alpha and the other dogs go after it. That's the pack mentality. That's how mammals handle things.
And that kind of builds like a little structure of leadership hierarchy.
Yes.
Of leadership and, different roles, kind of what's going on.
Exactly.
And in that hierarchy is also an implied responsibility, right?
Yes.
Right. So if you
and it is kind of goal oriented. Their goal is to pull that sled to the next destination. That's their goal. That's their job. Animals, pets, like dogs especially, have to have a job. If you don't, I've got 4 dogs, and you got to keep them occupied, or they go crazy and they get kind of hyper and they bark all the time. So you got to give them something to do. They want to do something, right? Okay. They want to pitch in.
So how does that kind of metaphor translate into the training room for you?
Okay. Who's the alpha in the room?
Who is alpha? That's a good question.
The instructor.
All right.
The instructor is the alpha. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it really depends what the goal of that alpha or the goal of that school is. Are they looking to make people better at jiu-jitsu? Are they looking to build a team of competitors that win all the time? Or are they looking to make money?
Okay.
So there's different goals that the alpha has in mind in a jiu-jitsu school. And the pack follows the alpha, correct?
Yeah. Can I just ask like a little clarification on the alpha point of who's like the leader of the pack?
Sure.
So what about someone who's just a superstar athlete in the room? Do they get leadership just by being good at jiu-jitsu?
Well, they probably have, they're in the high, they're not the alpha, but they're in the hierarchy somewhere.
Okay.
Like, for example, when you were at my school,
Okay.
all right, a lot of people naturally gravitated towards you for help, didn't they?
Sure.
Right? You became the uki, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's, again, you didn't position yourself, but you drifted or kind of worked your way into part of the hierarchy. You know, everyone in the classes knew your name. You know, they knew about you. They knew when they rolled, you were going to give them a tough, honest roll. Okay? So in the pack, that's where you fit in. Where other people weren't there, right? They were kind of, you know, the dogs in the back of the pack, so to speak. Not being mean or anything, but as a newer, lesser experienced student, that's where you jump into line in the back. You don't jump ahead to the beginning.
Got it.
Okay? You have to put your time and you have to earn your spots in the pack. You know, and that's what a lot of you guys did. You earned your spots in the pack. Now, some of the people earned a spot that wasn't so favorable, but they earned it just the same.
Got it. So it all kind of settles organically where it needs to be.
People wind up where they're supposed to be.
Got it.
Right? And just as easily, you know, in an alternate universe, you could have all went to, I don't know, a trombone school where you all learned to play trombone. And probably the same people would be in those positions. It's just, I think it's inside of a lot of people that they're, you know, like a hive. You know, there's the queen, there's worker bees, there's fighters, there's all, you know, all the bees have a job.
Okay. And then, so sorry, I was interrupting you. You were describing like different directions that the sled can go, the school can go. Are we trying to get people better at jiu-jitsu, or trying to make better competitors, or trying to make money?
Yeah, I mean, I've always found out when I've met people from other schools, you know, if you meet a couple guys from a school and they're all dicks, I, you know, bet money that the instructor's a dick.
Right.
You know, if they're all nice guys, I bet money that the instructor's a really nice guy. So it's, you kind of go along with the instructor's philosophy and his kind of the, like I said, almost like a mission statement, but maybe it's not something printed out or written on the wall, but we all have a little mission statement in our mind of what we want to do, you know. So, I mean, I certainly know what mine is, and I'm sure you know what you want to get out of it.
Sure.
We all want something out of this, right? Or why would we do it?
I agree. Just to add to that, just like a little anecdote, I think also students, as they come into the school, right, these are fully functional human beings most of the time. And
I'm going to say partially functioning.
Partially functioning. And I think they pick up on what the mission statement of the school is, whether it's explicit or implicit, right? They come in, they get the vibe, and they kind of see what the school's about. Yeah. And whether or not they can fully commit to the program, I think people choose which program they want to be associated with. Whether they're going to be at the front of the sled or the back of the sled, they like where this sled is going. They like where this is. So, you know, as a corollary, like when I was younger, we belonged to a synagogue, and my family wasn't practicing, but my mom liked to go to a very traditional Orthodox synagogue. And when I asked her, she's like, well, I want to belong to the place that does it right. Even if I'm not going to do it, I want to. So I think it's kind of like the same thing here is, even if you're maybe someone really likes the competitive aspect of jiu-jitsu, and even if they're not going to be a competitor, they want to go to a school where competition is pushed because they want to be in that environment. They want to be around.
They want to help out. Maybe they're training partners.
Right.
And they get, they're the ones who get whooped on, and maybe they're okay with it. Hey, but I'm helping these people move forward.
And I get to be part of that team.
Yes.
Right.
They may not win the matches, but they are, in a way, an important part of that team, because if they weren't there, right, if they didn't pay their tuition and they weren't on the mats with these people, would it still exist like that?
Right. Right.
So you got to think about that. There's behind every champion, there are a lot of people who worked hard, to allow that person to excel. Because you can't just sit home and get it done. You have to go to a school, and there has to be people at that school you can train with.
Right.
And, there has to, and when all the instructors go with the fighters to the tournament, there has to be somebody to stay behind to teach the classes, right? The unglamorous role.
Right.
So that's, now that person is a very important part, because if that person wasn't there, then who's going to go with the fighters to train?
Someone's got to mop the mats.
Someone's got to mop the mats. There's...
Hopefully there's someone mopping the mats. But
yeah, but you have to think about as you said, your tribe, your whatever it is it's a pretty big group, and everybody kind of has a different role, right?
Yeah.
You got a guy who's going to ease up the tension with a joke or two.
Right.
And you got a couple of those guys who kind of relax things. Then you got on the other side, you got a couple of guys who hype things up.
Right.
You have the what if guy who always asks, hey, what if he does this? What if he does that? What if he does this? You have all these people. Every gym has those people.
Right.
Okay. And they provide a little levity at times, some excitement at times, but they're there. And they contribute.
Right. Everyone brings their own flavor to the table.
Yeah.
Someone's black pepper, someone's paprika.
Yeah.
All right. So just to kind of clarify a little bit, so there's two aspects of this I wanted to migrate away from to kind of show. I think this is my perspective. I think we're on the same page. One aspect, I think, when a lot of people hear pack mentality, especially when it comes to jiu-jitsu and combat sports, and we start talking about lead dog and alpha, they immediately tend towards like that. We hate this term sometimes, but toxic masculinity, that alpha male, that like shirtless selfies in the gym, iron sharpens iron.
It's true alpha, meaning a leader. Alpha
right.
is the beginning.
We're not talking about people beating their chests and
it's not yo bro frat party alpha.
Right.
No, not that. So it's a bunch of people working in almost unison, right? We never get the whole unison. Almost we're attempting to work in unison for a common goal. And I know what my common goal is always to get better at jiu-jitsu. Some people are looking for belts. Some people are looking for championships. I want to refine jiu-jitsu to near perfection, right? You see what's the stuff, how I work and how I really try to think about everything. That's my goal. That's my mission, right? I want to make jiu-jitsu more perfect, closer to perfect, and true to the element where it's, the martial art, the small guy against the big guy. I'm building a toolbox with stuff to work against people who are much bigger, much younger than me. So that's my mission. I know that.
It's a concept where people are just looking to perfect one skill set. I just saw it on YouTube this week. It's a guy who's been around for a while. He's a Japanese chef. He makes something called omu rice, which he basically makes an omelet and puts it over rice. Mm-hmm. He's been making the same dish for 36 years. And the guy's like crazy. But he basically makes a perfect omelet. He puts it in a little pouch. He flips it perfectly so it comes in a little pouch. It's cooked on the outside, little runny in the inside. He plops it on a thing of rice. He puts a slit in it, and it just opens up and beautifully spills over the rice. Does it exactly the same way every time. 36 years, the same dish. Yeah, working towards perfection, just inch by inch. On the note, and maybe we'll circle back to it about leadership, though. I think a lot of people also in that environment, they take the leadership role and becomes very controlling from the top down. Sometimes you hear like jiu-jitsu instructors like bringing politics and religion and like into the room and kind of like imposing upon their students or like famously like Kriyanch stuff, right? Like, hey, if you go listen to this guy, you're not part of the team. Get out of the room. We're not talking about that extreme, right? No. And then on the other aspect of it, I think, and this is a little bit more common in jiu-jitsu right now, there's a very like free and open attitude towards the training room. There's a lot of cross training, which has pros and cons, and then it comes back to like I get a lot of criticism for I have a no drop in policy at my school. Large reason is because we have limited mat space, and I have to make sure that my members have enough space to work.
Absolutely.
Part of that is safety. I don't know if I don't know the person dropping in. I'm responsible for the safety of my students. I don't know, if someone gets hurt, God forbid, like there's no accountability. And then but one of the issues is also just from a teaching perspective, when you add a new element into the room, you don't know how it's going to affect.
Yeah. It's you don't win with drop-ins. There's no way to win. It's not like the guy's going to move from California to Brooklyn because he had such a great class for $20.
Right.
He's not going to drop everything. Not that your instruction doesn't warrant that. It absolutely does. But, no one's going to upturn, like suddenly take a jiu-jitsu class and upturn their life.
No, absolutely.
They're just looking to train. And if it's people in town, I've always said this, they're just looking to come and beat up on people that don't know their game. They're stale or stagnant at their school.
Right.
And they want to come bully some people. And they usually pick smaller schools to do this. And, no. Right. Unacceptable.
And again, when you have a tight-knit group, and I want to touch on this point, where part of that pack mentality, part of that group, right, is you've built trust, right? So it's you have, like you said, everybody brings something to the table. Everyone's kind of like rowing a part of the boat, right? We're all in unison. And it takes time to build that cooperation. It takes time to get that going, especially with jiu-jitsu, where you're putting your body in, your partner's training hands a lot. Like being in uki, when I'm in uki, whoever, or now that I have students who are playing as the uki, by the way, is the dummy, whoever we demonstrate a technique on. But whoever I'm demonstrating on is laying there and they're completely trusting me not to abuse their body, right?
Yeah.
That takes time to build. You can't just walk into a room and assume that. And there's two parts to that. It's also new students. When we have new people coming into jiu-jitsu, they don't know that yet. They don't know that they can't trust everybody. So a lot of times we partner new students up with experienced practitioners, because like purple belts.
Yeah.
Because we need people that can look out for themselves and look out for their training partners, right? Yeah. And it takes time for you to learn that I can't rely on the other person to keep me safe. I have to, keep myself safe.
Yes.
And to introduce someone we don't know to trust yet into the room, that's a lot. It's a big variable.
I know from my own experience, it's very stressful with a drop-in, right? Because you have to keep an eye on them. Like I normally didn't allow drop-ins.
Right.
Occasionally, if the person did it the right way, and I knew their teacher or some kind of a common thread between us, I would allow it. But yeah, it's really a no-win for the school.
So on that point of, in general, like just introducing new people to the school, I don't know how common this is. I know you did it at your school. I do it with my program, where when someone comes in for a trial, again, because the goal of my school isn't necessarily to make money. I'm building a community. Like you said, we're trying to get better at jiu-jitsu as well. We're vetting people, right?
Yeah.
When you're going through that process of like, and assessing whether someone's going to fit in with the group, A lot of times people are new, and we make exceptions for white belts, right?
Yeah.
So kind of how do you navigate seeing if someone's going to be good for the group that's going to be introduced into the pack, that's going to come in and be part of the team versus someone who is going to be trouble? Are there like things that you're just like, I don't want to deal with this? This is good. It's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of times if they're going to be a problem, especially the guys who the first thing they ask is, can I roll live during the trial class? It's the first thing they ask. Do I get to roll live? And I would not allow trials students to roll live. Wouldn't do it because they want to, you don't know who they are. You don't know what they know, where they came from. They could have been training for a couple of years. We saw that in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Who would come by and, oh, yeah, I'm a white belt. They're not a white belt.
Yeah.
They're just checking things out. So it's just, you got to give them like that month. Keep an eye on them that month. And if you see they're starting off a little rough, you just send the hammers out there, and
Right. You can adjust.
Yeah. Let them know that this is not tolerable here.
What are the things in the room that once they're in the room and as people get comfortable, so generally when people come into a new space, they come into a school, they're on their best behavior, and then we're all family, and now when we're family, we kind of like our true selves come out a little bit, right? What are some things that you see that kind of become disruptive, not to the school, but to kind of the trust and cooperation we have between training partners? So not like bother you as an instructor, but kind of mess up the trust that people have in training?
Well, it's both. It bothers me and it messes up the trust, and that's the helper, the person who's going to teach the technique to their training partner, and they've been training for a couple of months, and I know this, so I can teach it. You don't know it, and you shouldn't be teaching it because they're giving out wrong information. And I've seen over the years where these newer students would purposely explain it wrong to their partner so they wouldn't be able to use it against them.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen that.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, but yeah, I just don't like that there's one teacher in the room and there's a couple guys who will help out the teacher and just leave it at that. I don't want to hear any other, explanations and teaching going on. It does that really bothers me the most.
Got it. What about hard roles between people in the room? So I think how do you assess? Sometimes it's healthy for people to kind of, it's not have it out, but test one another. Like you have two guys who are kind of pretty close, and once in a while, they're saying who's got the stuff.
That's fine. What bothers me is when every role is strength and athletic. It's just all out every role. There's no dynamics to it. There's no chill button. But when the person just rolls hard every single roll, and those people because they have to break, they can't get all the rounds in because they're going too hard.
Right.
That bothers me when people just use strength and roll, and then don't finish the rolls. So,
not finishing the roll is frustrating.
Yeah.
And then, are you looking at how people are interacting in between roles as well?
A little, yeah. I try to keep an eye on things. Like I always notice who's ducking who's going after who when. People have strategies where they, they'll go with somebody tough first and then get the easier rolls in to finish. Or some people would just go for the easier rolls. So you can see it. I don't usually bring it up, but I know what's going on.
Do you think students are aware that as instructors we see that?
I think they don't. I think that that we're so busy with everything else, we don't see that. I see, what it is. You see everything.
I think, yeah. I see it even when I'm rolling. Even when I'm in the room rolling, I know what's going on.
Yeah. You kind of know from doing it for myself. I know from doing it this long, where they're gonna sneak the bullshit in. Where they're gonna do it.
Absolutely. How do you do anything explicit when you're teaching, or is there anything we can do to kind of build trust and the camaraderie and like the, you know, to keep people cooperative and not competitive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple things I do. Sometimes I tell little stories about when I learned the technique, or who I learned it from, or how I used it effectively. You know, that tends to kind of bring everybody together because now they know a little bit about me. You know, and it's
that
makes more you know, not to say family or it's yeah, it brings you closer with the students when they know a little piece of your history.
So that's interesting. So it's kind of like before we were talking about how there's an alpha, there's a leader, right? But now you're kind of describing in order to bring people together, you're kind of coming down to the same level. Hey, we're all so in terms of leadership, you know, my opinion is it's I mean a lot of leadership is, you know, by example, but how is it important to kind of like stay low key unless it's needed to go loud or
yeah. I jump on the mats, you know, when I have to. When
right.
I have to drop the hammer, I drop the hammer. And
Right.
you know, but they have to know when I roll with people, I give them a fair roll. I don't bully anybody. I
Yeah.
give space to work, but if they get a little uppity, they're gonna, you know,
Yeah.
get the
They're gonna
business.
get a little something, something.
Yeah, they're gonna get the business end of it.
All right. Um, how do you deal with assholes?
Well, okay. There's how I used to deal with it. You know, in the city, I needed those assholes. I needed their money, so I would just try to keep them on a leash, and that put a lot of stress and anger in my life. So now, if I haven't seen one yet, as soon as an asshole walks through the door, I'm gonna tell them turn around and leave. I don't want your money. You can't train here. I'm
Once,
just not putting up with it anymore.
if there's one in the environment, right? So I've kind of heard this conversation both ways, and I agree with both parts of it. It is disruptive to the room, but I do feel that for a lot of the students, sometimes it's good to have one around because you got to learn to deal with it.
Yes and no. It is good, but remember when we had the asshole of all assholes at the school? We had just about 100 students, and the day he left, everybody was happier in the entire program. You remember how the school was different after he left?
The energy changed. The energy.
One guy.
One guy.
Okay? That was my lesson that I learned there.
Understood. Understood.
It just changes everything.
Got it. Is there? So we have this unit. We have this school. We're teaching in a way to bring people together. Hopefully, that trust keeps people safe. What do you think is the main thing that comes out? Like, why is it so beneficial to have the pack mentality versus like the free flowing? So, like, we get all these ingredients, we put it together. How does it improve training when you have like this cooperative environment rather than, you know, a scramble?
Because that's how you get better, and you get better as a group. You know, just like in the Tour de France, a group of 20 riders can go faster than a group of 2 riders because they all share the load, break in the wind, and they take turns and they go faster and they go further with a group. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, same thing with the dog sled. You know, the dogs that are in the back of the row have to keep up with those faster dogs. They have to work harder. Okay, and then eventually they're getting better than the dogs in front of them. So they're at their heels. So those dogs in front have to get faster so they don't lose their spot in the progression. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. You got a group of guys coming up, and all of a sudden the white belts are, you know, really challenging the blue belts. So those blue belts got to step their game up. Okay, when they do, then the purple belts are like, hey, what are these guys looking for? They're coming into our turf now. We got to really shut them down. So their game has to improve. You know, it's
Right.
always you're challenging that person who is just out of your reach, right? You're getting closer and closer. So that person, especially in jiu-jitsu, will recognize it. And they'll recognize it because a bunch of other people will recognize it first, probably. Like, hey, so and so is really giving you a tough time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, and that's how it works. Is that originally there was one black belt, right?
Right.
How did he get better?
Well, that's actually the next question I was going to ask.
How did he get to be a black belt if he was the first one? Right? Someone else in the room made him better, right?
Right.
But that other person didn't get that black belt first.
Right. So, last point on this is coming back to kind of like the leadership role. A lot of people ask me this question. They ask me, well, who's your instructor? I said, well, Birdman. They're like, well, he's in Florida, so who do you learn from? You'll have to ask people. I mean, you've rolled with me over the last few years. I think I'm getting better. I think the people who I train with think I'm getting better.
Absolutely.
But in your words, when you're in a space, and this isn't just from, top down, it could also be in the middle of the pack. Sometimes the next person in line from you is far. Sometimes there's just gaps in the room, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like when we started our school, we had a lot of we had some purple belts and some people who were pretty deep into blue. So when the first white belt comes in, whoever was at like kind of the lower end of the blue belt, there's a big gap between them and the next person.
Yeah.
So how do you improve when there's a gap that large in the room, right? So you want to, it's obvious that in order to keep the camaraderie, you're going to play nice with them because we understand that I want them to get better so I can get better down the line. But for right now, how do I improve from rolling with that person?
Well, you just got to suck it up and go. Like when I was in Brazil, it was a couple white belts, a couple blue belts, and like 30 black belts.
Okay.
Those are the classes.
So what do the black belts get out of rolling with the white belts and the blue belts? That's my question.
Oh, what do they get out of it? Or
how should they approach it to get something out of the roll?
Oh, okay, yeah. So you like what I do is I put myself in bad positions.
Okay.
I'll always take a bad position and work my way out of it. And I let that other person, they get a little top time, they get a little control time. Okay, but I don't let it go too far. But yeah, I just constantly put myself in a bad position, get myself out. Put myself in a bad position, get myself out. And I noticed that white belts especially do the weirdest things I would never expect anyone to do in some of these positions. But it's good to see that and realize, okay, this is another way of looking at a different angle. I should be aware of this.
Right. It exists. It exists.
It exists. And someone may find a way to capitalize on this someday.
With all this wild like AI stuff that's going on, there was like a search that came out that someone was searching how to keep their cheese attached to the pizza, and the AI gave like a bunch of answers, and one of the answers it gives, well, you could use non-toxic edible glue. Is it a good answer? No, but does it fit in the category of what you asked? Yeah, it's like the same thing that a white belt brings to the table. Like, is this good jiu-jitsu? No, but it exists and someone might do that. So
we'll call white belt jiu-jitsu, we'll call it non-toxic edible glue from now.
Right. AI generated jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, it's if you roll with somebody and you don't learn something, then you have to check into what you're doing and what you're thinking. You got to learn something from every roll. You should learn something.
There should be no rest rounds, right?
Well,
for the mind.
You can go in and not go as aggressive and still learn something, but
you shouldn't go into a round and be like, oh, I'm just going to lay here and let the other person do willy-nilly.
You're better off sitting off to the side and watching what happens.
Yes.
Taking notes.
Right.
Yeah, for that. But yeah, you should learn something. And even if you get the crap beat out of you, you better have learned something from that.
Right.
If you came out and have nothing to show for that, learning-wise, it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. But you should learn pretty much every time you roll with someone, you've either gotten better or you've gotten worse. You'll never stay the same. Okay, that's how small you can make it.
Yeah.
And then every day you train, you either get better or you get worse. But you can break it down to, the grips. Every grip you make, on the thing, it's either better grip or it's a worse grip. right? It's never the same exact grip. We try that persistent placement to get it in the same spot, but it never is in the exact same spot because it's so situational there. The person is moving.
Right.
You know, it's like trying to position yourself on the wave in the same spot every time.
It's never the same wave.
Never the same wave.
Never the same wave.
All the conditions are different every day.
Right.
So it's when it's that dynamic, you just got to do your best. And like I said, and at the end of every roll, you've gotten better or you've gotten worse. You never stay the same. You're never the same after a roll. You're either better or you're worse.
Awesome. Cool. Wanted to wrap up before we go. Any jiu-jitsu specific techniques, topics you wanted to throw out there? Any do nots for the new guys and gals?
Yeah. Do not ask what to do, new guys. Ask what not to do.
Any tips for bottom half guard?
Bottom half guard, don't play deep.
Don't go to your back?
Wait, just don't play deep half, I'm finding. A lot of guys who play deep half against me, it's through how I roll now, it's just become so easy to shut down.
All right.
So, I know everybody's going to say, well, you haven't seen my deep half guard and come after me, but hey, whatever.
All right.
I make better cheeseburgers than you do deep half, so.
We need a Birdman cheeseburger tutorial.
Hey, I made them today. I even time it. It's a minute and a half on one side, a minute on the other.
Smash burgers?
Yeah, 2.5 minutes tops.
We need it on YouTube.
I can't. That's a secret recipe. I can't just let that out in public.
That's for the paid subscription.
I hate to say this, but it's paprika free.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. We're gonna call it here. Check us out on social media. We're down below. In Vero Beach going on this summer and through the future. First one coming up probably right around the time this episode drops will be the clinics down in Vero Beach with Birdman, 5 days. There'll be another one later on in July, and then going on through the summer. He'll announce more as we go.
In August, and it's back in September.
All the information's on the website, and if you need anything else, you can reach out on Instagram.
Drop me a line.
Awesome. All right, guys. Take it easy. Have a good one. Thanks for listening.